Foundation. Why are we doing this? We believe that AI is a path to prosperity. Let me explain what I mean. I think that this is a technology that is going to go wider, faster, deeper than other similar general purpose technologies that you've seen before. And if we don't pay attention to how it is going wider, faster, deeper, we end up in a future by default where some big words, humanity is shaped by evolution of technology. What do we mean by this? We mean this. We mean that post, that picture there of solitude, of conquering, of adventure actually looks like this because everybody wants to post on social media. It means that restaurants are now called Thai food near me because Google is how you drive traffic to your restaurant, and it is much easier to type Thai food near me and have your restaurant come up on #1 position, right? So our technologies do shape our lives, right? And the future by default is that a few control those outcomes. What People plus AI is hoping to do is make a future by design where we evolve the technology in service of humanity, right? We decide what this should be, which is why people plus AI, right? It's not the shiny new toy that's important. What's important is the people whom it is solving things for. We are a community. This is a more stricter definition that we are a community of doers, dreamers, thinkers, innovators who believe in the power of AI for the people. Right? Like you can't define one without the other, otherwise it's just some fancy statistics. We do believe that this technology will lead to many, many paradigm shifts. I just put 3 up there on the screen for you to chew on, because the purpose of this breakout session, I'll come to it in the end, is for you to tell us, the people to tell us, what this means for you in the field that you're in. I didn't start the timer, so I've gotten, I think, a bonus minute or so. But you've probably heard voice first a lot today, right? And today's session, we're going to also show you a very small demonstration of the second paradigm shift, the ability to listen at scale. So I've been working in this whole DPI ecosystem since about 2016, started just before UPI, and I was lucky enough to be with this team when demonetization struck. So no currency, and we are managing something for digital payments. Couldn't have asked for a better sort of time and place to be with this group of people, and I learned so much, unlearned so much on how technology is built, all the ideas about Silicon Valley and West and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerbergs that are bombarded every day. There is a different way to build technology, and we're hoping to do that different way in AI. All of these technologies will give you the ability to distribute at scale, distribution, and all of those things, but always used to seem to flow one way. Right? I think today we will see how we can make this work at scale the other way, with a little help from folks at GUI, whom we'll talk about also. And the third thing that Devjani touched upon, which is talent, right? India is going to be the youngest country at this scale, right? Our median age is still 28, and we will still have that demographic dividend for a few more years. It's time we make the most of it. We've already seen some ideas of how this works in the IT services industry, which we became the software capital of the world. I really do think we can do this for a lot more areas. So this is the model of AI that everybody has. Is you have data, models, compute. I think this misses a few key things that people take for granted. Number 1 is talent for everything. You even need talent to do data labeling. All those large LLMs have used companies like Scale AI, who have workers in India who are labeling the data, which they then feed to AI to automate jobs and take this stuff away, right? Where's that talent coming from? Our country. But also, like we talked about, Devjani said, we're number 2 in AI talent also because the professors, the sort of AI researchers, a lot of them are Indian, right? And even sort of running high efficiency compute centers, running large companies like Google Cloud, AWS, takes talent which is the kind of engineering and IT talent that India is good at producing. But there is another component, which is use cases. You're finally hearing the peak. We're going past peak hype, right? And now that everybody has made a poem on ChatGPT, people are asking, what do you actually use it for? And this is where I believe India has a very unique advantage. We are the use case capital of the world. Our lives are very complex. There's a slide that we keep talking about where if 2 Indians meet on the road, the probability that they speak the same language is 36%. as per the 2011 census, we don't have the latest census, but it's just 36% probability that they can even speak the same language. All our general information systems are broken. All of you know this, right? Even property, land titling, nothing works. For all of those things to get even to current state of art in the West, we'll need AI, right? So we will become the use case capital of the world. Since we have the use cases, which is actually what grows the AI circle, which makes it, go everywhere. We have the talent. Those are our natural advantages. We may not have some of the other stuff, but we can figure that out. What does People Plus AI do? We try to create examples, we call them exemplars. Create data sets, DPIs, protocols, all this good stuff. We're trying to actually go deeper and make sure this is grounded in research. So Xtep has also funded in some part, the team at AI for Bharat, largely coming from the government though. And you have more research on policy and Indian point of view on global AI regulatory outcomes, because we are going to have AI regulation come across. Like GDPR, like others, you want to have it more uniformly global. Like I said, use case capital of the world, if you're not represented there, we are not doing justice to this moment in time. And what we do is that we make dense connections. So we are basically a very small team that helps you do big things, right? So we are the kind of partner, complementarity partner for whoever you are on the right. We try to be the thing to you on the left, so that we are a partner to you, small team, you do the big things. And basically we traverse this journey from the imagination in writing a prompt to implementation in the app. That's all we are. Currently today with me is Tanvi, who is Director of Strategy at People Plus AI. I'm going to hand it over to her to explain what we do today.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, slide on the field and how they've impacted a few personas. Again, these are just a few. I'm sure there are many more innovators here in the field who you can actually talk to. The second part of the session, we actually want you to get up, move around, and talk to the people around you. We have a very cool experiment that we're going to run with the help of GUI. And we'll get to that. We'll describe what we're going to do. But the idea, again, is that People Plus AI is an enabler, an orchestrator of conversations. We don't want to talk too much. We want you to talk to each other. And this is also lending to the larger goal of creating an ecosystem of partners, both market partners who can use AI and technology partners who develop AIs. So basically, AI enthusiasts and AI innovators to kind of just get up and talk to each other, people you're sitting around, and actually learn what you guys are doing and working on. Because just a little bit of background, I come from the world of health, where I was developing a diagnostic tool far removed from bioinformatics and cool technology tools that are already out there. And my synthesis from working in that field for 8 years was that it was being developed through trial and error and heuristics, as opposed to being data-driven or actually being connected to technology partners who are already showing that you can do drug development, diagnostic development faster. So a big learning, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is that we need people and organizations like People Plus AI to connect innovators and enthusiasts. So without prolonging this, we're going to do transformation talks next, again, inspirational stories. Speakers next, the first speaker we have coming up is Utkarsh Vijay from Samagra. And Utkarsh, this is your speaker. And just speakers, heads up, we have a timer running here, so you will have about 3 minutes for your talk.
It's a consulting firm based out of Delhi. We work with state governments on large-scale systemic programs. I myself am managing multiple programs across agriculture in Odisha, UP, and also around benefits delivery. I also manage Samudra X, which is our vertical for managing, for driving GovTech and DataGov work. What I'll do today I'll be speaking about how we are transforming farmers' life through tech and AI in Odisha. This is our farmer, Mr. Naresh Sahu. Nareshji is based out of Kharia village in Aska block and in Ganjam district. Nareshji has a lot of problems, faces a lot of challenges while doing agriculture. He's a small holder land farmer, which means that he has less than 2 hectares of land parcel. Nareshji, because he's based out of Ganjam district, the key challenge, one of the key challenge is the weather distortion. It's a coastal district, so he faces the challenge of monsoon season, more rainfall, and lack of rainfall in Rabi season when there is less rain in the state. He faces challenges like pest attack around October, November, when his crop is almost ready for harvest. And for all of these challenges, he primarily depends on government for support. So from sowing of seeds to which quality of seeds are to be sown, to where to buy the seeds from, for getting benefits on seeds, farm mechanization, etc. Crop management, animal management, pest surveillance, everything is, and finally the procurement. He's heavily dependent on government. And that's what, by working with Odisha's government Department of Agriculture, the story of what transformation we have been able to bring about in Nareshji's life is what I'll be talking about. So Nareshji got to know about the registry of farmers that the government was creating, and he got himself registered on this registry. The registry is called Krushak Odisha. As soon as he was part of the registry and he gave the consent to receive all the services from the government, he gets a call from a call center called Ama Krushi. The number is 155333. He knew about the number. He picks up the call, and there is an advisory because of his profile in Krushak Odisha database. Ama Krushi knew that he's going to sow seeds in next couple of weeks. So Ama Krushi called him and told him that in Ganjam district or at your location, these are the best quality of seeds that you should sow, and you will get a 50% subsidy on the seeds. Nareshji was happy about this, but he was still worried that I'll get 50% subsidy, but I'll have to pay upfront money. But as soon as he calls Ama Krushi back again for this support, Ama tells him that government of Odisha has also leveraged e-rupee by NPCI and has reduced the burden of subsidy on him. So 50% of the cost of subsidy can be given through the voucher that he receives from the government, and he has to pay only 50%, thus reducing the credit burden on him. Now, seeds were sown. He was very excited. He got to know about farm mechanization. He wanted to buy some tractors, etc. He went on to the government portals which were available, where benefit delivery is completely transparent. But for buying tractors, he needed loan. He needed credit from the bank, and getting credit from the bank is really, really tough. But again, to his rescue, there was a credit facilitation platform that the government had created. Almost 31 banks providing 400 loan products are available there, and this credit facilitation platform in the backend is based on the beacon protocol, which allows banks to plug into this portal at any point in time. Now, all of this was okay. He was again and again calling the call center. Now he needed support proactively. So the government had provided a chat GPT-based LLM model, where he can write in his local language, Odia, which is, and get answer to his queries proactively. Those are the 5 dimensions that I want to touch. Customized advisory profile, 5.5 million farmers getting it. 50% cost reduction to almost 4 lakh farmers. Convenience and benefit delivery for all the schemes and services that are available for farmers. 2 lakh applications have been received. Transparency in credit. In last 6 months, farmers have applied for more than 50 crore worth of loans, and proactive knowledge support. And how is the government monitoring all of this? Through a data center, which is Krushi Samiksha Kendra, where all of this data is coming together. They are identifying the anomalies, they are identifying the needs, creating policies on basis that, and also reviewing their entire operations on the ground. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Utkarsh. Of course, we're trying to stay on time, because we also believe that the itself has been cut a little short. So I have, it's very good timing Shri Amitabh Nagji has come in. He's, for those who don't know him, he's CEO of Bhashini. Sir, I'll come back to you at the end of the session. We're trying to do a little bit of like a back and forth. We're trying to do these transformation stories and then sort of, try to create these ideas of who it will help, how it will help. The next talk we have Salil from EY, who's actually talking about language and sort of breaks barriers. Salil, over to you. And then I would like Sir to come in and maybe a little bit more after Salil give a little more background on this.
Start. Okay, hi folks. Good afternoon. My name is Salil Mehta. I'm a partner with EY, and I've been part of various transformative initiatives pertaining to DP and DPG. And today, the focus in terms of AI for societal good is we will talk about as well as how that is transforming the lives and what are the possibilities, right? So how do we bridge the digital divide? Here you have Bhaskar and Nandini. They are migrant laborers working in a different state, and is back home. They are having daily wage earnings, which they obviously save and then send it back, right? Do you think this couple can transact in English? What are their needs? Get some of their needs. They want to book a bus ticket to go back to their village for the upcoming festival season, right? They want to see a video about a new scheme that has been launched for migrant workers. They want to transfer money. She wants to transfer money to her father, who is in a different village. They want to view a judgment to a land dispute, that's going on for a while. And they just want to see converse more easily with their neighbors who are also from a different state. Don't we want them to be able to do all of these transactions and use the power of technology? Now, a lot obviously has been made possible by Digital India through a plethora of services. A lot of it has gone online, through mobile, through portals. Various things have happened. Similarly, the private sector obviously, if anything, has gone even ahead and offering a lot of these services digitally, and they are trying to take it to the last mile. However, one of the causes for digital divide also happens to be that there are estimates that perhaps arguably 10 to 12% of our population only can speak English, which can master. Certainly true for the 60 to 65% of our population that's living in the rural areas. Despite the explosion of the digital world around us, say that only less than 1% of the content that's developed is not in English, or is in the Indian languages, right? So that's precisely the reason why it's contributing to the digital divide, acting as a friction for Bhaskar and Nandini to be able to utilize some of these services. Now, yes, there are attempts, there are efforts, for sure. We all know of those clunky options on the portal where you can go and change and select the language. There are obviously a lot of options, that are coming in from the private sector. But that's not necessarily something which is built for billions or built at scale. And this is precisely where Bhashini comes in. So essentially what it is doing is that it has got corpus of data, text to speech, speak to text, etc., covering English and the 22 languages which are part of our constitution. And to aid to this corpus, because this is essential, it's extremely critical for Bhashini to succeed, they also have Bhashadan, right? So this is another effort that's there to be able to collate and generate this corpus. Using this, there are various models which are being developed, the likes of AI for Bharat and IITs, etc., who are looking at using this data and trying to train them so that we have technology services around speech recognition, speech to text translation, vice versa, the translation itself. And basis this, there are various products which are out there in the market available for all of us to utilize, right? Now, what we essentially need to look at is what are the possibilities, right? Just imagine if the lesson plans can be generated easily in the languages of the teachers. Students, again, Abhishek sir mentioned the example when he was on the panel, right? They're able to access courses from variety of MOOCs. Farmers are able to, utilize and engage various services with, advent of AgriStack much more easily. The blue collar workers are able to make sure that they are able to get their on-the-run learning, are able to file in their transactions in their languages. Patients, right? So the possibilities are endless and many more. And this is something which is real. Umang, for example, is already utilizing Bhashini to be able to make it easier. NPCI is about to come out so that instead of having 50 key presses, people are able to say, Babuji ko paise bhej dijiye, and with proper authentication, etc. So this is very real. It's happening. Lastly, what are some of the things that for all of us, as and back to Tanvi's point about energizing ecosystem, if there is two problems for action that we need to solve, first is how do we efficiently source that corpus data, because it's all pertaining to our languages to start with. The 22 languages in our constitution, that's what we need to attack, and then we can go to the other dialects. And last, how do we mobilize the ecosystem to be able to develop use cases so that we are able to leverage this infrastructure which is hosted by our government. We have a Digital India Bhashini division led by Amitabh sir, who's doing phenomenal work to get this out in the market and take it ahead. How do we do it? So just will leave you with a thought. If you're looking to build for billions in India, Bhashini has to be part of your story. Thanks.
So we're very fortunate that in this session also joining us is Amitabh Nagji, who's CEO of Bhashini. And I thought, for all of you, if you're thinking about building, if you're thinking about doing something in India, this is how your product goes from 10, 20 million to a billion, right? So I thought we'll ask sir two questions basically. So what is the impact that you've been seeing? What is that eye-opening moment that you think others should also know? And second, what are your plans for the future?
Yeah, so I think you saw the use cases. It's about multilingual teleconsultation, so that's health application. It's about farmers knowing what is to be done and what are the challenges they are facing. In funds transfer, what about the crops, when should they, what treatment they should give to the crops based on the weather, climate, etc. All the conditions. You have students who are supposed to access the videos who now can access in local language because they may not be good at understanding or speaking English. So what we see is that we should be, the amount of proof of concept. So Salil also talked about the voice-based payment. So what we feel is that we should be in a position to actually impact lives of about 200 million people by March 2024. In some way or the other, they would be using the services to gain benefits out of it. One important thing which you would have realized during the presentation is that although the mission was about transcending the language barrier, means, cross the language barrier and do something more, by using speech as a medium or voice as a medium, we are actually bridging the digital divide as well as the literacy divide. So, we are working on situations. If I start naming some things which perhaps be on the plans, if I do a voice-based banking, a person who does not know read and write and walks into the bank and says that, tells the computer I need a checkbook, and the checkbook is presented to him after, going through the regular check and otherwise, you have actually gone through many lines, bridged many things which were not, which were unthought of. So the final mile inclusion, which, Aadhaar did a job, UPI did a job, DBT did a job, but this was still to the people who knew what is to be, what is either understand computers or they had a friend who would be operating or the digital assistants who were there. But this will take it to the final level. People will be able to do self-service, etc. So our idea is most of the government services, because that's where inclusion needs to happen first. And then, of course, if for example, what happens if D2C, companies become voice-enabled as well as multilingual? Will their market access increase? What will happen to tourism? Those are the economic benefits which we can count on. But that's something we are looking at post-March 2024. Our focus today is that how can we include the society, make society more inclusive, and some of the targets which we are taking are till March 2024. Right? Thank you.
Great. Next up is Shashank from Convigenius.
So hello everyone, I'm Shashank Pandey. I'm a social entrepreneur. I co-founded Convigenius roughly a decade back to aid learning outcome improvement for the bottom 20 crore children in the country who live in low resource settings. And I think we heard Sanjay sir talking about technology becoming the language of education in the morning session. So we created this platform called SwiftChat, which we thought can solve that problem quickly in a swift, smart, simple way. So what this does is, today, when we enter into any large educational institution like a government or a big educational body, since technology has been the hot topic after new education policy, NDR and other policies, governments are experimenting, institutes are experimenting with a lot of tools, ranging from ERP to LMS to assessment to learning to adaptive learning digital courses, which is letting them collect a lot of data. But what is missing is the interconnection between them. How do you interconnect all those data? How do you connect all the dots and then drive some action out of it? So that is what we intend to solve through SwiftChat and AI. The first thing was unification. How do we solve for unification? How do we bring all these systems which pretty much run in silos and create an interoperable framework which can connect all of them? But along with unification, what was important is simplification. Because when we talk about Bharat, majority of the people don't have that tech literacy. Right? For most of them, WhatsApp is their internet. Right? So we wanted something which is very simple, which can cut across all the age groups and their literacy levels. We thought chat is the only platform which pretty much everybody knows, from a 4-year-old to a 80-year-old. So we started building solutions over chat, over conversations, and which is now called conversational AI, the buzzword, especially after ChatGPT came into existence. So this interface, right, can give you quick solutions in education. Whatever you can imagine. I can take some examples. So what we intend to solve for is, for every user in education, how do we automate through AI the delivery of right content, right data, and right information at the right time. So we create chatbots where students, if they are solving something, we can connect them to a relevant video which is important for them to learn that topic. If there is a teacher who wants to improve the classroom delivery, she can quickly access the report at a click of a button as to what's happening in my classroom and what I need to focus on. If I am an admin, I want to create a PTM meeting, parent-teacher meeting, just because there is some data available and you want to have the parent involved in the learning process, you can do that very easily. Now these are all interconnections that we are able to enable as an interoperable framework of all the technology that is available. We call it Sampurn, Samarth and Shashakt. So now everything in education, we are able to think of it as a conversation. So typically, largely pre-COVID, all the key stakeholders, children, teachers, parents, admins, in any setup, in an educational setup like a government, etc., were not very connected. What we try to do now is connecting them. And one unit of change which Tanvi asked me to mention is that conversation. On a digital platform, how many conversations are we able to drive between all these three key stakeholders? And this is the data I'm presenting to you for the last 2 years. And this is constantly rising, which means if you give them a simple platform which is easy to use, meaningful, vernacular, people can converse, and these conversations are enabling good quality education. And luckily, I mean, this has been adopted by a lot of state governments in the country, where they use these chatbots, to accelerate the implementation of policy. And these chatbots generate data, which is then used for insights and action. This is also a part of the key program that is running in the country called Vidya Samiksha Kendra in multiple states. So all these chatbots, when they deploy, generate a lot of data which governments can use to drive action and policy. And this is does not just end here. We want to take conversations into the real world, where even if the child is outside of the school, they can talk to a AI avatar of a teacher and feel connected and have that human touch going. And as I said, we started this for the bottom 20 crore children, the Naya Bharat that the Prime Minister talks about. If you're interested in our work, please partner with us and help us take this to the bottom 20 crore children. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashank. Very crisp. And folks, I just wanted to intervene to say this, that since we're crunched on time, I hope as you're seeing all this, you're thinking about change in your own organizations and contexts. And as the next presentations come, probably there's these QR codes on your table that we'll ask you to scan and interact with in a little bit. But please keep thinking about what this means for your own domain. I wanted to hand it over to Tanvi.
Next up is Synth. So we have Urvin and Vaibhav who will be talking to us about their product. Just tell me. Signal to me there.
Yeah. Hi guys, this is Urvin and Vaibhav, co-founders of Synth, and we have another product now which we're talking about, Infor. So taking from the previous presentation, talking about the future and now of it, we'll kind of present something similar on that. Yeah.
Sure. Imagine you're a doctor who is entrusted with the duty of healing and caring. But imagine the same system in which you're working with doesn't just require a skill, but also takes away some of the time from the genuine care. And instead of taking care of the patients, you get buried in the admin work. I would like you to allow me to introduce you to Dr. Radha. Dr. Radha, on one hand, while she's taking care of the patients, she's also engulfed with a lot of admin work. But what sort of admin work are we talking about? Let me just dive a little bit deeper. On one hand, we know that there is a demand for healthcare professionals in India, which is increasing. We saw during COVID that our healthcare system needs more resilience. Dr. Radha understands that, and she knows insurance penetration in India is very low and it needs to increase, right? And as part of health insurance policy issuance, one of the critical things right now that is happening is a medical examination by a doctor. Nowadays, medical examinations, see, a doctor is already spending time with the patients, and now they have to take out some of the time to do these medical examinations. And these medical examinations are very simple, temperature based questions to understand your medical history. They can be as simple as like, oh, if you have a tuberculosis, when did it happen, what sort of treatment was done, and so on and so forth. And once these 30 to 50 questions are done, doctors like Dr. Radha are supposed to document them as well, which ultimately brings down to the problem that do they really have the time to do it? And this never-ending cycle continues, and it turns care into casualty.
So, is there a way out? So that's where Info comes in, where it can give Dr. Radha back her time and focus, right? And I'll just, short amount of time, so I'll just quickly move. Info is a multimodal AI voice agent, like an AI assistant that can facilitate in these clinical examination calls. And further, I'll just jump to the demo because lots of talking. And after that, I'll just give you future use cases.
We don't use genuine office.
Okay, I'll give the background sound. Basically, what the agent does is it helps Dr. Radha take off basic medical examination of her routine, right? So it's a voice agent or an AI voice that will be actually conducting these on behalf of Dr. Radha for basic medical examination calls and forwarding them to Dr. Radha for the complex ones. Further, even for the complex calls, she still has to do the documentation, which she's doing. That will also be done automatically and extracted into the system.
I'm going to just start over. I'm sorry. We're just getting this sorted.
Waiting on the line. I hope well today. Now, I would like to ask you a few questions about your to help you find the best insurance option. Is that okay with you? Yes. Great. Let's get started. First, could you please provide me with your age? 26. Thank you for sharing your age. Next, can you let me know if you have any pre-existing medical conditions or ongoing health concerns that you would like us to take into consideration? Yes, I did have a surgery in my knee.
That was me.
Thank you for waiting on the line. I hope you...
Okay. Yes, that was me. I did have a surgery. But again, like I was saying, it will also help the doctor in real time to also access medical history of the patient as well during these medical examination calls of complex cases. Now, of course, this is from an insurance perspective, right? What are the further use cases that this language understanding and the domain understanding can provide? So now, for in-person consultations, we know that it is important to kind of document it into an EHR. This can be done automatically as well. What else? It can also, again, for in-person consultations, can actually retrieve someone's previous medical history and give that access to the doctor for better diagnosis and for easier access to that information. Lastly, because it's an AI agent which can be scheduled and actually speak freely without any human intervention, it can help with appointment follow-ups and even follow-ups on treatment, whether the person is following the treatment, is there any information that can be collected for the doctor to act on, right? So there are lots of use cases for better care delivery through, of course, AI and these boundaries that AI is pushing within India as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks guys. Okay, so the next talk will be by Sean, who's from GUI. But while we do that, because the session right after that is powered by GUI. So see, in an ideal world, Tanuj and I would be talking to each one of you, asking you what you do in your everyday life, what you do at your workplace, how big is it, are you from the government, are you from a technology sector, and just trying to understand what kind of use cases you guys see emerging in your workplace. Unfortunately, we only have an hour, and there are just the two of us. So what we did was, with GUI, we have basically created a chatbot. So we are calling it the People plus AI. But just think about it as Tanuj and I, or I on the other end. It's a one-on-one conversation. There are QR codes on each and every table, and we'd really like for you to kind of open up this chatbot. It's multimodal, multilingual. Talk to it in the language you want. You can send it audio notes. You can send it text. Just start with a hi. It's going to walk you through it. Tell the bot what you do and how you see AI transforming your workplace. Just tell us what you do, honestly, because we would love to know. And the cool thing is, the other two rooms are doing this on paper sheets, which is going to take 2 months to collate. We're going to do collation in 10 minutes, and we're going to tell you cool stuff about who's in the room and who you could be talking to. So with that, while Sean is speaking, please explore the chat. So.
Thank you.
Here, I'll bring you another one, right?
Yes.
But it's also just
It sometimes works a little better when you're a little farther away. So, hi, my name is Sean, and I'm really happy to be here. I work at GUI, and hopefully this will go forward. So, for the last several months, we've been working with Digital Green, and in particular, they are a long-standing organization focused on increasing farmer productivity across India. And they've done this for many years by collecting great videos from farmers and recording them about a best practice, and then distributing that to other nearby farmers. And this process of essentially taking insights from folks that are locally on the ground and then spreading the best of those insights to other people like them, they've proven is a more effective way to get people to actually change their behavior for the better. And so they've been doing this for 20 years. And so the question that we sort of jointly had with them, and we started this in February, beginning to think about this, was, hey, how do we take these thousands of videos? Like, they have 100 million YouTube videos of their agricultural videos. They have literally thousands of PDFs and farmers and fact sheets, and they've been working with the Ministry of Agriculture in India, in Ethiopia, and in Kenya as well. And so, and then all of like the KISS and call center logs, which is, when you think about it, an incredible amount of wisdom. Right? And so the question is, how can we unlock that wisdom in the most accessible way that we could imagine? Which is like, well, can you just talk to it in your own language on WhatsApp and then get back references to the videos so that you actually believe the advice? And so we ended up building this. We launched the very first version just in April. Ricken, the CEO, presented it at the UN as basically an example of how AI can be used, and we'll kind of walk you through it. And that is not animating. So in short, this is a real WhatsApp bot, right? Any of you can go there if you go to farmer.chat, and you can basically ask any question, and then it looks through that entire knowledge base, and then in multiple languages, and using things like Bashni, it is giving back answers that you see. And so for us, the big part, and then the part that's probably most exciting, and this is an N of about 450 people, about 33,000 messages exchanged with farmer extension agents and the bots. And so I think the encouraging part is there's some initial data that folks on the ground are actually finding these things useful, right? So that people are feeling more confident and capable, and because no one knows everything, this farmer can make all of this information accessible. The fact they can do it in the middle of the night, the fact that people don't feel stupid for asking a question that they should know the answer to, especially if they're an extension agent and supposed to help out other farmers. There's all these interesting use cases that are coming out from the actual bot that are quite exciting, right? So we're finding that the farmer extension agents are then working with the farmer directly to sort of interrogate what's happening here. It's the second one. They're doing group Q&A sessions with the bot in real life. And then the fact that there's advice that comes through the bot that's actually shared out is also very exciting. And so I think this gives you a little bit of a glimpse of what the power could actually be. This is predominantly from Andhra Pradesh in Telugu, and then you can see from the different states. We've got it in 5 states right now. And so I would just say at a high level, the initial results are encouraging in terms of people going ahead and actually using this with some real usage data. And for us, I figured I'd give you a little bit of a complicated graph of what's actually happening behind the hood to make these things work. And the reason that I'm doing this is because we want to demystify for all of the organizations that might take advantage of these tools, how do they actually work? How do you make them effective? How do you put in a feedback loop and a data analysis loop so you can actually know that you're giving value to people and not just a technology exercise? And so, if you look over here, we basically have Digital Green, who's aggregated literally 1,000 videos and several hundred PDFs and manuals about how to grow wheat better, how to grow chili better, et cetera. And we put all of those, and we use Bashni's technology and Google's technology and many of these other speech recognition engines, and it really does depend on the use case in terms of which ones are best. And we translate that. We go through a really important process that people shouldn't skip, which is called synthetic data creation, which is basically taking a transcript or taking a manual and then reverse engineering what are the questions that people might ask about this manual. And if you do that, you end up basically making a much better knowledge database in the middle. And so there's this sort of data preparation process. And the one other thing that we do, which I think is really important, that I think people shouldn't forget about, is local experts need to be able to edit the knowledge that's going into these AI systems using tools that they already know how to use. And so all of this is actually going into an intermediary step, which is just Google Docs, that allows people to say, this video, maybe the information is out of date there. I'm going to go ahead and tweak that. And so this iteration loop for any organization that's thinking about actually making AI systems is really important, that the people that know what they're talking about in this space have a way to correct in real time and then reiterate and remeasure the effect of the knowledge bases that they're putting into these AI systems. So that's happening here. And then over here, we're basically taking in audio messages, and we just hook up IVR systems. we're putting that through speech recognition pieces like Bosnians, we're doing translation, and then that turns into a question that goes against that big knowledge base. And then finally, we're basically summarizing this results, and then as we look forward, we're going to try to pull in other really interesting sources of data, be it weather, be it the profile of data of that farmer, to basically then have, at effect, the best LLMs in the world try to reason what really is the good advice that I should give back. And then, there's a whole translation pipeline that goes back to WhatsApp or IVR to make that happen. But there's one last key part that I'll sort of give you, that you shouldn't forget about, which is how do we know that the advice and the answers that we're giving back to people are any good? And so it's really important that we have these feedback systems and that we monitor what's the percentage of feedback that we're actually getting. We're at about 6-7% of responses that get feedback here, because we want to use that to basically make these systems better, to classify that data, and then in particular inform the experts that are curating these knowledge banks and put it back in. So this is this example, and I think the big thing that I would just say is, if you go to Farmer Chat, you can go down to the workflow, and so that any of you can really inspect and see, well, what's actually happening? What was the scripts that made this happen? What were the documents that made that happen? And we, in the spirit of digital public goods, think it's terribly important that as organizations in an ecosystem, we share out how did we actually make these systems, and that the more we can share that, and the more we can take advantage of all of the best technology pieces, the better we're going to be able to, actually deliver value to people. So I'm going to stall it there, but this is kind of like our philosophy around it. Come talk to me. We work with lots of people and lots of different partners, and we'd love to talk. And with that.
Thank you so much, Sean. So next up, we really are going to do this session in 10-minute parts. So for the next 10 minutes, feel free to move around, talk to the people who've spoken here up on the podium, ask them questions about their technology. But also, if you haven't, try out the chatbot and give us feedback. One of the things that we're trying to do at People Plus AI is build a network of partners and really understand what's the requirement from the field, right? Because it's very different and diverse. So tell us what you want to do in the space of AI. It could be a very simple sentence.
Dependency on collectors for enrollment, etc. is being reduced. The one key dependency still remains is identifying the beneficiary or finding the beneficiaries to tell them that you are eligible for the scheme, and that is what has to be solved again, because eligibility, while Aadhaar has solved for a lot of identity challenges that used to be there, eligibility still remains to be a challenge, and hence there is dependence on the district offices. That's what we are trying to solve in UP as well, that eligibility also pre-known, because most of the certificates are generated by the government. They are not generated by anyone else. One government department is generating a certificate which has to be used by another government department. So generating them in a verifiable credential format, storing them as a verifiable truth or single source of truth, and then just enabling the implementers on the ground that we know that these are the 5 beneficiaries. You just need to go to them and get them enrolled. So we are just reversing it rather than keeping collector's office at the fulcrum.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Can I just one small announcement to the room is that please interact.
Haryana has done Parivar Pehchan Patra, but they're still developing it. They're still doing it, and I think doing it at a scale of a state with all the family linkages, their verifiable credential, it takes time. But I think all the states are in that direction, moving in that direction, where they can maintain the family databases, they can maintain the eligibilities of the family, and also cross-reference it. Just for an instance, one example I can give you from UP. There are 16 lakh pensioners that were identified who were old age pensioners who were not getting ration card or who were not getting ration under NFSA. So that has been enabled by just by looking at the old age pension data, if their families are already part of NFSA, etc., and those cross linkages have been created, and now they are being proactively enrolled. But in this entire journey, one important thing is we need to include the citizen somewhere, right? It could be just telling them, it could be just asking them to click on a button, because you need to take consent from them as well, whether they would want to receive the benefit or not, right? So citizen has to come in between somewhere, while this government can do all the intelligence or intelligence layer bit on the back end.
Also, poor Utkarsh volunteered and we've put him on a spot, so I don't want to do that. I want to like sort of open up and take it to other conversations. So on the screen right now, all of you all must have tried this. Hopefully, we saw how much total was some 30 plus conversations something like that, 35. There are 60 of you in this room. I counted silently. So therefore about half you tried, and then some of you all went forward to the next stage, and all of this happened like none of us sit and fed this. This is what Sean has built with GUI.ai, is this backend that actually takes what you type as natural text and gives us stuff like this in real time, right? Something for which you would have needed a data scientist at some point of time, and in the backend there are also your actual use case. We don't know what you have spoken, so we're not going into the exact conversation on screen, but we just wanted to show that it's very easy then to listen at scale, as you were saying, to start understanding from unstructured, and none of you tried the voice, thank you, because it would have been very noisy while the speakers were talking. But if you had, and this is what we expect with tools like Bhashini, with what Synth and Convergenius and others are building, that you will start having these conversations also in the form factor that people are most comfortable with, where literacy is a challenge. You'll use voice gets translated to text gets translated in certain languages, which gets translated into a language that the administrators are comfortable with, which then goes from unstructured to structured, right? All of this translation of context is happening with AI much very easily, build once and works in all contexts. Sean, yeah.
There's one little Easter egg, which is if you go into that WhatsApp piece and you go into About, there's a link in there to the workflow and the script that actually made the bot. And so you can sort of peel behind the curtain and see there's really just about 100-line GPT script, right, that's basically powering this whole thing. And that anyone can go and fork that and do whatever they want with it. And so if you want to replicate this for your own scenarios, all of that is available and transparent there.
So one question to you, Sean. How many man hours, if I still use that term, did you put in to recreation?
One.
So everything you see right now was done with one person hour, right? Like somebody for 1 hour. Sean's colleague Dave came to our office and we wanted them to work on something, and somebody else gave us these documents for poultry farming, and they sent it to us like one day before the meeting. They walked into that meeting and he had this bot working, and I asked him, sorry, this was very last minute, this must have taken you a lot of time, and he said, no, just 20 minutes, right? So that's where we've reached, and that's what I want to impress upon you, that the ability to create something like this or even better is not very hard right now, and I hope you all talk to us, talk to Sean, talk to others in the room to figure out what you can do.
Sean, I am... Oh, okay. Yeah, is it better? Yeah. I'm also connected with the Dara network, so yeah, I've seen GUI around. I had a question around synthetic data generation that you were talking about. With the proliferation of augmented data, there's also this conversation around illocutionary harm that's happening. I love that you have feedback angles in the WhatsApp bot, but given that some of the, advice or content might have stronger impact on, say, the people it's addressing to, so just like a thumbs up or a thumbs down might actually not be addressable enough of their issues. Are there back channels that you have created so if that could address something like this?
So the question was, especially with synthetic data, like the AI is creating the training set for some scenarios, like what can we do to make that better? And so the advantage of the thumbs up and thumbs down piece is the frequency of feedback increases, right? So I keep thinking like, what was the core innovation of Uber? Was they made you rate your previous driver before you could get another ride, right? And that allowed them to basically make a feedback loop that allowed their system to get a lot better. So I think it's really good to have something simple to sort of start people off. And then the thing that we do is if you give a negative feedback, then we say, please write anything you want. And then real people look at that, right? And then say, hey, what's going on that seems strange or off or wrong here? To be honest, a lot of the synthetic data stuff is just a fancy way of saying we're trying to make the search engine work better, right? That's it. It's not anything more complicated than that. It's not making up stuff. It's literally just like rephrasing a statement as a question so that when somebody searches with a question, it more clearly maps to that. And so it's there's less issues of bias. And the way that we deal with bias is we partner with organizations like Digital Green and say, you guys own all the content. And literally, if you try to ask a question beyond the scope of the data documents they put in, the bot literally just says, I don't know. Right? And then we then track very precisely of like, well, if we go from 30% I don't know to 25% I don't know, then we're doing our job better as we iterate. And so that's how we sort of prevent some of the hallucination and the kind of bias issues that are inherent in many of these LLMs.
Folks, I'm sorry to be the bad guy, but they've been asking me to move because this turns into the big royal ballroom again. Stage is that way. Please write to us if you need anything. The chatbot will still work. If you want to do something, we'll monitor that conversations today. But otherwise, you can write to tanuj@peopleplus.ai, tanvi@peopleplus.ai, or info@peopleplus.ai. Please take these conversations outside. I think we're starting lunch right now. Yeah, and I will hope to hear from all of you again. If there is an interesting use case that you put on the chat, we will reach out to you to take that forward and actually make it come to life for our campsite in mid to end November. Thank you so much. I hope I'll see you the rest of the day. Feel free to talk to me.